Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. It is so awesome when I'm able to connect with someone again. I connected with this gentleman on the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast, and his topic was so relevant for leaders. It was so great to bring him on now and talk about this topic, but from a leadership point of view and how you can really improve your workplace. So Language Linguist Paul Zolman joined me, and Paul talked about the love languages and how that could work in the workplace and how we can get around the HR rules and policies and still show our people a lot of love. You don't want to miss this important conversation. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to the Leading from the Middle podcast. And I just can't wait for you to hear this gentleman today because he's been on my other podcast and I love him to death. And his message today for you leaders is just going to resonate so much. So I'm going to just introduce him and let's dive in. And this is always a tongue twister for me to say, so I'm going to say it slowly. Language Linguist. And he's also the author of The Role of Love. And he'll definitely talk about that. Paul Zolman has joined me today. Paul, it is just unbelievable to connect with you again today. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Kenny. So glad to be back with you. I enjoyed our podcast previously and looking forward to this one as well.
Oh, so am I. Absolutely. And I want to give the audience an opportunity to hear your amazing, and I mean amazing, backstory. And so why don't you go ahead and tell us your backstory? And it's just incredible. And then we'll dive into how this can help leaders. And what you're doing is just so phenomenal. So, but let's start with your backstory.
Great. Thank you, Kenny. I want to start a little bit probably with my grandfather, because I think that what has passed down from generation to my generation has been more of a generational thing. It's not genetic, but it's generational. Our parents teach us what they know. And obviously that's passed down, and we don't know what we don't know. We just know what we've been taught by our parents. And my grandfather actually had 9 children in Indiana. And then suddenly after that 9th child, his wife passed away. He was so distraught about that and he didn't have the knowledge that we have today that you should not make major life decisions when you're in a crisis mode. He made that major decision to sell a farm, sell all the equipment. And then when the people came up to pick up the equipment, he said something like this: "And would you like this child? And would you like this child? And would you like this child?" Until he systematically gave all the children away except for one. He took Benjamin with him to Montana, found a school teacher that had never been married, had 10 more children, of which my father's number 6 child of that. When my father was born in 1922, when he's 10 years old in 1932, this grandfather passes away. So now you have 19 abandoned children. You're in the depth of the Great Depression. So there's not only the abandonment issues, but there's that economic problems that are going on as well. So he's 10 years old. He goes to school a few more years and then graduates from 8th grade, and he's done. That's all the schooling he ever gets. He learns the mechanic trade and then learns how to be a truck driver. And that's how I knew him when I was growing up. I'm number 10 of 11 children. So, I don't get this, Kenny. How could my grandfather have 19 children? My father only have 11. I only have 8. But my children are only having 3. I just don't get it. I want more grandchildren. I don't know how they did that, but
Going down, yeah.
Yeah, it's going down. I want more grandchildren, and we hope that we'll improve from generation to generation, but such as it is. So while my father's gone during the week truck driving, he comes home on Friday. Dates my mother every single Friday. I love that value that he had for women. He wasn't very creative about it. It was always the Maverick bar, always over alcohol. And so while they're having this little date, I can imagine, I was never there, but I can imagine they say, well, how was your week? How was your week? And then my mother starting at the oldest child, going all the way down. So all the older children are boys. I have a one older sister and a one younger sister. I'm the thorn between two roses, Kenny. And so you know how he valued women. And if I look cross-eyed at those sisters, I was in trouble. So I'm in trouble already before he ever gets home. So, but he's getting annoyed at my brothers. They're like puppies. They're just swatting at each other and rolling around and wrestling and breaking arms accidentally, not on purpose, but accidentally. But just all this little angry things that little puppies are doing. And they're not really angry. They're more playful, but it turns out it makes him angry. He gets annoyed and stacked another annoyance, another. Now it's time that he's ready to have that flash of anger at number 10. I felt like I was a target. And it was probably because my mom started at the top and went all the way down to number 10. And he's way annoyed now. And he's imbibed with alcohol. So I get the belt or I get a severe spanking. And it's just really physical abuse. There was sexual abuse in the home, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, all different kinds of abuses in the home. It was more of an angry culture where you've got the vocabulary, you've got the biting humor, you've got all the put downs, there are no boundaries. That's the type of situation I grew up in. I wanted to leave that situation so badly. I left at home at age 17, right after my junior year of high school, went to live with my brother. He had two small children, and I didn't have a chance to play with small children before that time. My youngest sister was just a year younger than me, so really didn't have that opportunity. So it was really a fun opportunity for me to play with his children, my niece and nephew. And as I'm playing with them and getting to know them a little bit, I see that my brother has this same issue that'll stack annoyance on top of annoyance on top of annoyance on top of annoyance until there's this flash of anger. As I started having children, I saw I had the same problem. And I was just blaming my father up until about age 35 for these awkward moments. They'd happen in public, they'd happen in private, and it was just awkward moments. It's almost so awkward, Kenny, that it's like that person in the swimming pool that suddenly has an accident. Everybody scatters, say, it wasn't me, wasn't me, wasn't me. And you're repelling people. I didn't want to repel people anymore. I didn't want, I wanted to draw them to me. I didn't want to repel them. And I think as far as middle managers go, that's probably what they want to do. They want to draw the employees to them so that there's that trust there, and they want that trust to be permeated throughout, so that the employees know that they can come to that middle manager. I didn't have that feeling. I wasn't that person. I wanted to be that person. So at age 35, I make a declaration. I don't want to be angry. And from that negative background, that was a perfect declaration because it was really negative. And it was kind of a double negative, and that only works in math. You can multiply a negative number by a negative number, you get a positive number. It doesn't work in relationships. Absolutely doesn't work. And it wasn't working for me. So speed forward a little bit. After 23 and a half years of marriage, this anger was probably contributory to the demise of our first marriage, among other things, but it was contributory to it. So I become primary custody of the 5 remaining children in the home, and I'm single. And on the weeks off, when she has the children for her weekend, I decide I'm going to have this midlife crisis. Kind of like a middle manager, you're right in the middle. I was right in the middle of my life having that midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Wanted to have some fun. And so I decided I'm going to do some what I call destination dating. Find a person online that lives in a different city, decide on a city to meet in, and then we'll have a date and then go back home. So I did this, and I did it for a year and a half, had a great time. I went to Daytona Beach, Florida, and Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, New York City, Salt Lake City, Kansas City, Nashville, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Cabo San Lucas, all these cities and more. Went to all those cities on destination dates. It was a fabulous time, had great dates, but didn't find love. Just was looking in love. There's no way. I could not find the way. I guess there is a way because people do it, but I couldn't find the way to make a long distance relationship work. I thought I had a good one on the line in Phoenix, and I moved there actually, and it just didn't work out. That same time that it didn't work out, my ex-wife decides now she's ready to have the children back. There's 3 children now remaining in the household. She wants them back, but her idea is to move in with her parents in California. So she wants primary custody back. And I thought, you know what? I'm number 10 of 11. I did not know my grandfathers. My one grandmother lived 350 miles east of me. The other grandmother lived 350 miles west. We rarely went to the grandmother's house. We did go, but I just didn't remember it so much. I thought this would be a really good experience for these last 3 children to get to know their grandparents, at least on their mother's side. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'll go ahead and relinquish primary custody to her. Now I'm all alone. In that all alone state, my older sister calls me and says she had a neighbor that she wanted to introduce to me. My sister thought I was lonely. My sister lives 7 hours away. I said, sister, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that traveling. I already been looking in love in all the wrong places, didn't find anything. Right. And it just wasn't working for me. And she's the older sister. She says, oh, come on. And I said, okay, I'll email her. What kind of relationship can you develop with email? And what could you expect? I wasn't expecting anything at all, but I found out she was a really good writer. And so we started doing this exchange. And after about 4 or 5 exchanges like that, no phone calls, just email, 4 or 5 exchanges, I get brave. I'm asking a question. How many times have you been married? It's kind of a loaded question. And you kind of wait for that perfect time to ask that type of question. She writes back, she says, counting the 5 that are buried in the backyard. And I roared with laughter. I think, I got a live one on the line. I got someone with some personality, someone with a sense of humor. This might be worth pursuing. So we start getting a little closer, and then I decide I'm going to move up by my sister. And then we become more serious. Now it's time for big brother approval. So I take her 300 miles north to visit my brother and take her inside. First thing that happens is my sister-in-law pulls her aside and said, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first I denied it, said, then it made me mad.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I verified exactly what my sister said, and I was busted. I was absolutely busted. But it came to me, I realized that, if there's any opportunity to change that perception of the Zolman family, change that tradition of the generations, now was the time. Now is the time to start learning, look for something else other than the anger and that angry culture that I was carrying with me. So I started reading the color code and the 5 love languages, and I really liked the principles of the 5 love language. But coming from where I came from, I didn't get it. You mean, Dr. Chapman, if I guess what Kenny's love language is and caters to that, Kenny and I are going to be buddies? I'm a bad guesser. That's not going to be happening. It hasn't happened yet. It's not going to happen. So, Dr. Chapman has another suggestion. Well, if you take this survey, then you can find out what your love language is. Well, Kenny, what am I supposed to do with that? Advertise? No, Kenny, I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? Here's my Venmo account. What do you got? And it's awkward, just really awkward. And that wasn't working for me either. So I had an idea. Even as dysfunctional as our family was growing up, and we played games, and there were still all the put downs. There was still all that aggressive competition, but it brought our family together. I thought, what if I could make this a game? So I contacted Dr. Chapman and asked him, are you licensing those little icons, that little pictures that you have for each one of the love languages? Mm-hmm. And his attorney wrote back and said, no, we're not doing that at this time. So I had a friend that was a copyright intellectual property attorney here in town. I went and talked to him about this idea. He said theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is. So I thought, well, I'll make my own icons and then I'll make it into a game. And that's what I did. So I made it into a cube. This is what the cube looks like. I'm holding up a dice that has 2 hands together forming a heart. From that heart, actually, there's like a cartoon conversation fly out, meaning that the words of the heart, this would be the words for the love language of words. The next one is a hand holding an hourglass that would represent time. The next one is looks like a waiter holding a platter that would represent service. Next one is two hands touching like they're holding hands. That would be touch. And then the last love language is the hand holding a gift. That would be gifts. So 5 love languages, 6 sides on the cube. The last side actually that I made is a hand holding a question mark. The question mark is for surprise me. There's just, Kenny, there's just 2 instructions. You roll the cube every day. Whatever it lands on, that's the love language you practice giving away all day that day, all day. I was single at the time. Dr. Chapman suggests that you give it to your significant other. I didn't have a significant other.
Right.
So I said, who in the heck am I going to love? And I realized, oh, I get to love everybody. For me to find a replacement behavior for the anger, this was perfect. I needed that consistency. I needed that every single day, every minute of the day, to focus on something different, to focus on love. So right now I'm looking toward what's wrong with that person. And look, focusing on their faults. I had to turn the opposite direction and say, now what's right with that person? What can I love about that person? It was the diabolical. It was absolutely turning the whole 180 degrees different direction. That paradigm shift that I needed in my life, that replacement behavior that I needed in my life, that would help me actually overcome the anger. I found Kenny that I was looking at what was wrong with that person is probably maybe 10, maybe 20% of what a person is. Their faults or their weaknesses is just a small portion of who they are.
Yes.
When I realized that, I realized, oh, I'm missing that 80 to 90% that's really good about that person. As I focused on what was really good about that person, I became so busy, I forgot to be annoyed. I forgot to stack those annoyances and get to that anger point. And it was almost overnight change, almost overnight transformation. The other thing about rolling the die every day for a 30-day period, I realized I'm learning all 5 love languages to give it away. What that did for me is improve my communication skills. So now I can see it when it comes my way and respond appropriately. I am so relieved that I don't have to manage another person's life. I realized that that was a boundary that I did not have growing up. Now I have it. The only thing I can that I really have control over is sending love out, responding when it comes my way. Just like I could not control or dictate or even advise without their permission the life of another person, I can't bid love to come my way. I can only respond when it comes my way and say, oh, they're loving on me. It's not my primary love language. Now I've got that peripheral vision. I can see, I can respond to that.
Wow. Wow. Paul, it is such an amazing story and such great advice to replace anger with love. I mean, just and then the practicality of what you do every day by rolling the dice, I think is just it's just phenomenal. And as you were talking, I was jotting a few things down because it fits so much with what leaders need. And that's where I want to now take you. Just an amazing story, but now advice for leaders. And I wanted to start with this because this stood out for me before and it stands out now, how you said that stacking annoyance on top of annoyance on top of annoyance. And I think middle managers may have those folks that are working with them that just annoy them. And they may not say something at first, second, third, and then it just comes out and then they find themselves in trouble or that employee quits. And talk a little bit about that. How can leaders get past that stacking? Is it just, doing it right away? And then I really want to go into, because I think you're talking about really changing the culture of a workplace as well. But how do we get past the stacking annoyance thing first?
The best way Kenny, that's a great question. It really is a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that question. So it's really really something that let's work with a little bit. I found in my life that as I focused on what's wrong with people, that it actually became bigger. It's like I have a magnifying glass, and whatever that magnifying glass it hovers over, it actually gets larger. Why would we want that mistake or those faults of another person to get larger? So these middle managers that are focusing on the mistakes that people make are actually making the mistake get bigger. And I noticed that with my children. If I focused on the mistake that the child was making, that actually got bigger. That just like a slap in the face of wake up. Why are you doing that? Why are you focusing on that? And then focus on the good things that that person does, and then say, and may I make a suggestion? And ask that employee, could I make a suggestion to how you might be able to improve that other task, and how you might be able to get just even a better score on your performance interview the next time you have a performance interview. I want to help you get a raise. I want to help you get more money. I want to help you just be happier here. Can I show you a way that might facilitate that a little bit better? And so you can have that type of conversation rather than a critical conversation that you're criticizing that person. They don't want to be at the workplace at that time, and now you've exacerbated the problem. If you're critical in any circumstance like that, it's without any love to follow up with that, it's going to come back to you, and it's really going to come back to bite you. What I found, Kenny, is that you send anger out, and that's like a boomerang. That boomerang goes up, and when it goes up, now it's coming back with the velocity of gravity, and it's coming back 10 times worse than you ever sent it out. Who in their right mind would send anger out for that to come back like that? And just think about it for a minute, and then start sending this love out, focusing on what they're doing right rather than focusing on what they're doing wrong. It's the best advice I can give any middle manager, any manager at any level, anyone at any level. Just focus on what's right about that person. They'll love that. People don't quit jobs, they quit people. Be that person that they want to stay with. I want to be with Kenny because he's a great manager. I want to be with Kenny because I feel loved around Kenny. They'll stay with you.
Yeah, Paul, that's priceless advice. A lot of leaders, and this is where I want to get into how the culture can change, right? Because I think a lot of leaders shy away from just the word love, right? Or just, are hesitant to use that in a workplace. Hey, I love my team. Oh, do you? No, I really love my team. But you don't find too many leaders that will go down that path. So what are some practical ways to start to change the culture into picking out these love languages and figuring out your team and your peers, what are their love languages? How do you start to go down this road?
Kenny, the best way, and what I was finding out when I was rolling the cube, and I still roll the cube every single day, but the best way to discover what somebody's love language is send it out. If they respond and light up, that's how you discover what their love language is. No longer do you have to say, excuse me, could we pause this relationship for a minute so I can have you take this survey so I know how to love you? It's awkward. You don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
And so you could take the survey, you could have them take a survey, you could get that formal. Business is kind of a formal transaction type situation. You could get that and go that route. And it probably would not be offensive to go that route, but I wouldn't suggest it. I suggest you actually use your observation skills to find out. It's a whole lot more endearing when you do it that way. Otherwise, you kind of I find that the survey puts people in a box, and that they'll only get fed tacos the rest of their life. That's all they're going to be able to eat the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Rolling the die actually gives you that variety that you get to eat different types of love every single day. You get to send it out, and you get to watch for coming your way every single day. You want all your employees also to learn all the love languages themselves so that they understand that you're sending them love, regardless of whether it's their primary love language, you're sending them love every single day. They need to understand it, and it will improve that communication. any improved communication in any relationship, except especially a managerial relationship, that improved communication is going to bring production up. If there's hostility, it takes production down. Middle managers especially are responsible for the bottom line and responsible for production. That is their job. They are the boots on the ground, so to speak, to be able to, or they're the leader of the boots on the ground to make it happen for upper management.
Yeah, I love that. And I was going to go down that road of communication skills because that is so key today, right? I think you'll have better hiring, better retention rates, and everything like that.
Mhm.
So let me ask you that question this way. You broke a generational curse in your family. I mean, you broke it, man. And now, you've set the standard now for your kids and your kids' kids and so forth, which is great. There are a lot of companies that also have kind of that generational cultural curse,
Mhm.
right? Or even an individual store within a retail chain or whatever. Um, how do you break that and then really move your communication skills forward?
I think great. That's a great question, Kenny. I think that the very best way to break that is to hire well. Just hire people that are loving people.
Hmm.
You really want to kind of in the interview,
Yeah.
just find out what kind of what kind of love do they express. And when I say lover, I don't mean it in a romantic sense. I mean
Right.
it in a decency. How decent are they? How kind are they? How caring are they? That's the love that we're talking about. It makes an exceptional team to have people that care about one another. The one experience that I had, I actually was a CFO of a public company, but before I became a CFO, I was actually with a loan servicing company. In that loan servicing company, I just started with the company, and they assigned me to do account reconciliation. These are large accounts for the investors for that loan servicing company. Uh, I had they assigned me like 40 different accounts, and within 2 days I had them all done. And all the employees around me were surprised. And I'm walking around asking for more work and said, I'm done with my work. What can I help you with? And I
Hmm.
think that love, that you're looking for an employee that will do that, that when they're not pacing their work, slowing their work down so that it lasts 8 hours, so that they have that one project and then they're done for the day. You're looking for that employee that actually will finish their project and then go around the cubicles, go around the office, find out who else can I help, who else can I help on their journey, so we can have a more productive office. That's exactly what a middle manager wants, is employees like that. So I think the key to changing a culture within a company is hire well, hire those people that will have the caring abilities to just go ask for more work, do a service, be service minded, and ask for more work from their fellow employees.
I love that. I love that. And I want to combine that now because I had two more questions for you. I'm going to combine it into one because I'm so glad you went down the road of hiring. Um, you may have someone that comes from even a similar background that you came from, or a broken home, and they have no clue about what true love and what love languages even mean. So how do leaders you know introduce this without crossing any human resources line or policies, and how do they tend to start to recognize this, that they may have someone here that, oh, this is not anything that's happened here in my store or in my workspace. It might be something that happened at home. How do they skate those two, Paul, and balance it out with, work not, going past any given HR policies, but yet still finding out enough about that employee that, hey, this one might be a little bit broke from home. How can I get past that?
That's a great question, Kenny, and that's really a complicated question. Do you want that person that's broke from home, that wants a better life, and that is going to struggle and that's going to work to get to that better life? I think you would.
Yes.
I think they're gonna have that anger inside, that I'm angry about that past. I want to get past that past. I want to move on to the next level. And that middle manager noticing that is going to motivate that person to say, how about this? And make those kind suggestions, or offer, may I make a suggestion? Even ask them permission, help them draw boundaries. Say, you ask permission for before you give advice, and if or you can ask a person for advice, but those are the only two ways that you can give advice. You can't just spit it out and say, do it this way, because you became a dictator, and people will respond in a negative way toward that dictatorial type leadership or management. Ask it for permission, and just be respectful of their bounds. As a middle manager, when you're respectful of their bounds, they're going to send that respect right back. That's a form of love, respect. And I want to just touch here how they get there, and how you're watching for these type of things. I don't think you have to discriminate toward their type of background, because if they've got the motivation to want to be there, they're going to want to be there, and just take on that motivation, and just work it into the culture so that it actually becomes an asset to the culture, not a liability. I, one thing that has worked so well for me is, now I realized, Kenny, after this long time of stacking annoyances to get to anger, I realized that, oh, now I'm stacking kindness on top of kindness on top of kindness to get to higher laws of love. The higher laws of love are charity, compassion, forgiveness, empathy, sympathy, mercy. All those are higher laws of love. These are basics. So you need your employees, as a middle manager, you need all your employees, you need to equip them with the tools, number one, so that they can learn these basic love languages, so that you can get to those higher laws of love, stacking the kindness on top of kindness on top of kindness. Whoever would think that they could get forgiveness by insult, 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 ask for forgiveness? It's not going to happen. It's going to make a toxic environment. Stack the kindnesses, and teach your employees, as a middle manager, also to learn how to stack the kindnesses. Forget doing the insults, forget the sarcasm. And the sarcasm is kind of one of those angry words. If you consider the word sarcasm, what would be the opposite? And this is what was key to my transformation too, is if you can put an adjective to where you are on a spectrum of between anger and love, put an adjective to it. If you're sarcastic, is it on the loving side or is it on the angry side? Let's say it'd be on the angry side. So what would be the opposite of that sarcasm? Word that comes to my mind is authentic, genuine, genuine. So now you put sarcasm up against authentic or genuine. What do you want to be? And it's a no-brainer. It's when you make put it in that context, it's a no-brainer to make that choice. You need to help, as a middle manager, to help your employees know that. It's really, like you said, Kenny, it's going to help with the employee retention, but it's going to help with the employees being able to talk one to another. It's going to help on that level. It's going to help customer service. If they can identify over the phone, or however they meet the customers, identify the love language of that customer, you'll be able to quickly see if they light up. When they light up, you just work with it. That customer is going to come back. They're going to ask, where's Kenny? Where's Kenny today? I want to talk to Kenny. Kenny is my favorite person at this office. I want to talk to him. And they'll ask for you by name. Think of it for sales. It's going to improve sales if that salesperson can actually identify the sales or the love language of that customer. Yeah. They're going to connect with that customer. We're talking about connections. That's what you want. You want that increased productivity. Love's the answer for that.
Oh man, there's no doubt about it. So stacking kindness instead of stacking annoyance. I just it is, in retail, restaurants, call centers, we tend to hire folks at a young, impressionable age, and what you talk about can be so life-changing for them to really get to that next level of kindness, as you were saying, feeding the hungry and clothing the naked. It can be those next levels that folks can do, have a lifetime of just service and service to people through just, their leaders, this middle manager, showing them this type of love. And I think it's amazing. You are such an inspiration, Paul. It has just been amazing to connect with you again, and I hope to continue to do it. And so I want to give you some time now to talk about how people can connect with you, get your book, and get that die. I mean, talk a little bit about how folks can connect with you and work with you.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Yeah, I've got a website. It's called rolloflove.com, and it's kind of a play on words, Kenny. And I don't know if we've talked about that before, but ROLL is outside of you, and it's things outside of you really don't. Sometimes you can't control circumstances. You can't control that at all. What's inside you can. So that's the ROLE that we take to control the love that we send out and how we react to that love that comes back. roleoflove.com is the website. They can find the die, the book. I do have a journal as well. Some people may want to keep track of what they rolled, opportunities they saw to love in that way, and what they did about those opportunities. It becomes a love legacy journal, something I would have loved to have from my mother or my grandmother or my grandfather. Instead, Kenny, I got a journal about the weather. The weather 60 years ago. Who cares what the weather was like 60 years ago? You can have your own love journal to pass on, and it's really specific. I've found that when I look at a journal page, if it's blank, my mind goes blank. What the heck did I do today? We are setting the tone by rolling the die every single morning and reporting at the end of the day. Some families are rolling it in the morning and they're reporting at dinner time. It's just everybody needs to report what did they do that day. And just when we can be responsible for our actions that way, we're going to have a better life. Middle managers need to be responsible too. All the employees need to be responsible in that way. But you can find the bundle of the book, the journal, and the die for a lot less than just one therapy session. $29.99.
Yeah.
And that's the special. It's about 20% off right now.
Awesome.
Kenny, I'm going to do this for your listeners, that if they'll order right away when they hear this on your show, if they'll type the word Kenny in there, if they'll type the word Kenny in the notes, I'm going to give them an extra die as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so generous of you. That's awesome, man. Paul, God bless everything you're doing. Continued success. Spread the word. I'll do my part to spread. Hopefully we'll get, a lot of hits on this. And but thank you so much for being so generous with your time, being so open and so vulnerable with your story. I think it's going to impact so many people as it did, before. So thank you again, man. It's just great to see you and connect with you again.
Thank you, Kenny. It's to be with you. Let's do this again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So folks, this is, we're going to leave it there. This has been Kenny and Paul. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast. Talk to you real soon.